Hello, spooky friends. This is Kitty, and tonight we're talking about a little-loved 80s gem, Werewolf. It has a cult, but it's a small cult. Werewolf ran from July 1987 to May 1988. There were 29 episodes, including a 90-minute pilot. It was the horror offering of the newly fledged Fox network. You'd think, after spending so much money and effort on it, they might have treated it better. By admission of everyone involved, including the creator Frank Lupo, it was a cross between The Fugitive and The Incredible Hulk. Eric Cord, our titular werewolf, is bitten by his bestie, whom he subsequently must kill. He's on the run after that, trying to end his curse by killing the progenitor of his line, Janos Skorzeny. Yes, though pronounced differently, the character is named after the vampire in The Night Stalker. Rounding out the permanent characters is the unfortunately named Alamo Joe Rogan. Joe is a bounty hunter who becomes aware of Cord's true nature early on and chases him with silver bullets. The pilot of Werewolf might be the most 80s thing I have ever seen. Some scenes look like they walked right off the set of a music video. It has pacing problems because it was clearly a 45-minute story stretched to 90 minutes. For example, after the opening monologue by Alamo Joe, we are in a nightclub. Mike and the Mechanic's silent running is playing as the camera lurches through the dancers, clearly in the POV of the werewolf. We wonder what the clubgoers must be looking at to react with such fear and disgust. Well, it's this. Dude does not fit in. You'd expect this scene to last maybe 30 seconds or a minute. Well, remember Silent Running? It's not a short song. And we get to hear all of it, which is cool. I really like that song, but it set the standard for stretched out scenes that give you a real get on with it already feeling. I soldiered on because, well, this happens a lot in pilots, and I was rewarded afterwards by tightly written 22-minute episodes. Originally, I was going to cover several forgotten shows. I was only going to watch a few episodes. I totally got sucked in and watched the whole thing. For 1987, the special effects are cutting edge. This is not a man who turns into a regular wolf. This is an in-between classic monster. The werewolf costume was designed by Rick Baker, who handed it off to the show's head of makeup and effects, Greg Cannon. The thing is an amazing hulking mountain of fur, worn by a stuntman with additional hydraulic effects controlled by crew. Each suit cost $500,000 in 1987, and there were 2 fully functional suits. At first, the only expression for the werewolves is an open-jawed snarl. This improves somewhat as the show goes on. The transformation makeup and effects are as impressive as any I've seen from the time. After the pilot, the show goes into helpful drifter mode. It was the first big Hollywood break for John J. York, who played Eric Cord. After Werewolf, he went on to star in General Hospital for more than 30 years. In a much later interview, York said, "My question was, where did Eric Cord get all his clothes? Because yes, in this mythos, the poor werewolf wakes up confused and naked. We don't know if Cord backtracks to his bag or what, but usually, in the next scene, he's dressed and carrying a knapsack, even when he wakes up in the middle of the woods." A couple of other interesting bits about the mythology. The phase of the moon doesn't matter. Once the pentagram appears on your hand, it's time to get furry. A prosthetic with little tubes even makes the pentagram bleed. Also, when Eric touches something of his progenitors, he can see the memories associated with the item. This is helpful in getting backstories later in the series, but it also leads to some wild, almost surreal episodes. In one of them, he dreams about werewolves who seem to have nothing to do with his own bloodline. It's strange, but a very good episode featuring Richard Lynch with an octopus tattoo. If the show had gone on for years and developed a rabid fan base, no doubt there would be many theories. Eric is pursued by Alamo Joe, who is also called the Indian because apparently he's 1/3 Native American. Personally, I think he could have done with fewer nicknames, but it does come up later in the narrative. I won't say Werewolf handled Native Americans perfectly. Also, how would this very white person know? But it was a lot better than most shows at the time. The episode Skinwalker barely skims by the magic Indian trope, and in the end, it's handled very well. Several of the actors are even Native American, a standout for the time. But guys, we can all tell that one guy is Japanese. Seriously. Joe is played by Lance LeGault, who most people will remember from another Frank Lupo production, The A-Team, where he played Colonel Decker. But we gotta talk about this guy a little bit. They say this is the most interesting man in the world. I submit for your consideration, Lance LeGault. LeGault was heading up a blues band and playing in a small club in the early 60s. It was apparently near where Elvis was filming, and the King would go there after work to unwind. It was the beginning of a long friendship that included Lance being Elvis's stunt double in several films and having small parts in several others, about a dozen altogether. In the 1968 Elvis special, Lance is there playing tambourine. He was an accomplished pilot and raised Arabian horses on his ranch. One of them was named El Alamo, El for Elvis and Alamo for Alamo Joe. Some people are just there in the background, living fabulous lives. And if you're thinking, man, she really went down a research rabbit hole on this one, of course I did.
Research. That's where the joy lies.
It's LeGault's buttery voice that begins the pilot. Now, normally I hate voiceovers, but this one rivets you to your chair because of that voice. They later give the character a 2-part episode, deepening him somewhat, but he never gives up his relentless pursuit or his belief that Eric must be destroyed. Finally, our last headliner is Janos Skorzeny, a serial killer wolf played by the legendary Chuck Connors. Skorzeny dresses like a sea captain, in a peacoat and a cap, and sports an eye patch. The special effects of his transformation are exceptionally gruesome as he peels back his face to reveal the werewolf. Over the top at first, I believe the character could have become more nuanced and interesting over time. Unfortunately, Connors was also legendary for being an asshole. A few days after Alan Cole and Chris Bunch took over the story department, Frank Lupo perched on Chris's desk. Chris said, "How can we help you, boss?" Frank said, "I want you guys to fucking kill Chuck Connors for me." Now, I don't understand all the ins and outs, but Lupo took Connors in only after a promise of good behavior, as in, "We're already spending our limit on the show. This is your contract. Don't try to hold my show hostage with a renegotiation." Lupo is quoted as saying, "Everybody warned me not to hire the son of a bitch, and it turns out everybody was fucking right. Nobody would touch the guy. They thought he was a fucking time bomb." Lupo went into further details, but the writer blogging the story, Alan Cole, didn't share them. Damn it. It may have to do with Connor's reputation as a serial philanderer, but we may never know. Before the show even aired, Connors was on the talk show circuit, drumming up publicity, and then he decided he wanted to break his contract and, you guessed it, renegotiate. Lupo was done. They wrote him a good death with a 3-episode arc. Connors promised to come in to film it. 2 days before filming, he backed out. In the end, they had to make it 2 episodes and use a double for Connors. The writers made sure to humiliate the character, having him kneel to kiss the ring of the Werewolf King. Never piss off a writer. The new bad guy was the very stylish Werewolf King, played by Brian Thompson. You'll probably recognize that hatchet of a face, even if you don't recognize the name. He's a favorite of mine, and it was great to see him play such a sophisticated character. The show is filled with great character actors and guest spots, including Sid Haig, Bebe Osterwald, Ethan Phillips, and W. Morgan Shepherd, who starred in a surreal episode titled The Grey Wolf, written by sci-fi great Norman Spinrad. One small surprise for me was the director of several episodes, James Darren. Yes, that James Darren. I feel like I should have known he was a director, and from his werewolf episodes, a good one. The show's music, which was so 80s, was composed by Sylvester LeVay. He was so 80s, he collaborated with Giorgio Moroder on the Flashdance soundtrack. The show also contained a lot of contemporary music, both pop and country, by the biggest names, especially Merle Haggard. Lots of Merle Haggard. There was even an in-show joke about it. This ended up preventing a video release, as the songs could neither be removed, as there was dialogue over them, or cleared. The French company, Elephant Films, who apparently don't need no stinking clearance, released a DVD set in 2020. So when you see an episode on YouTube titled La Malédiction du Loup-Garou, it's from that set. The show ended without resolution after one season. I imagine the writer's strike had a part to play, but essentially the show was too expensive. Even using recycled transformation scenes to cut cost, the show was a whopping $700K per 30-minute episode to make. It had great ratings, so Fox moved it around to various slots, making it impossible for viewers to find, until they finally put a silver bullet in it. Blackthorn Publishing produced a comic continuing the story, but it lasted only 5 issues, and also did not provide a resolution. John J. York is still around, just saying. Special thanks to Radio of Horror for their interview with John J. York, AJ Gertz for posting the Elvis birthday celebration with Lance LeGault, and Alan Cole for his hilarious blog. Yes, Alan, I bought the book. And thank you, spooky friends. I love you to death. Good night.